Miley Cyrus. Yep, I had the privilege of sitting with the incredible Miley Cyrus for this week's episode. We went deep, we went real, we compared reclaiming notes. There is so much wisdom packed into this 32-year-old icon. I think you'll be as blown away as I was. Anyway, I hope you find something in our chat to connect to, and thanks for joining us on Reclaiming. Thank you to our presenting sponsor, Audible. From nail-biting suspense to sweeping romance, Audible brings every thrill to life. Discover what lies beyond the edge of your seat today. Sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com/reclaiming. Miley, I'm so thrilled to have you here. Welcome to Reclaiming.
I love the title.
Oh, thank you.
It's a great title.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I got to see Something Beautiful, your new visual album, over the weekend.
I didn't even know you would get to see it.
I
would have sat with you.
Oh, I was on the plane and you should have seen me because I was like making sure no one could see. Although I also wanted to kind of grab the thing and go, I just want everyone to know I'm watching Miley's new album that's coming out. Is mesmerizing.
Thank you.
And,
I really appreciate that.
And I'm excited to talk about it a bit later.
I feel like the title of Something Beautiful actually resonates and really complements, Reclaiming and what your platform and what your podcast stands for, because Something Beautiful, just the title alone, carries a lot of power, a lot of weight, a lot of energy. And we all experience, I don't actually want to narrow it down to this specific time because, as you know, as much as anyone, every generation and every society and community experiences different struggles. So it all feels like we're all experiencing the worst of the worst, in our own way. And so I felt like there was a need for this medicine, which I think music is some of the most potent in a very kind of sick culture and time, but it's not specific to my time. It's not specific to now. It's just what the world really is. It's a place it's hard and it's tough and it's can be cruel sometimes. And so to inject and infuse beauty into a world that I feel like, experiences a lot of pain and hardship, it feels like it's really a purpose for me. And without purpose, I'm not really interested.
Do you feel like you're a channel for music?
Sometimes I feel like I don't know where music comes from through me. Like it will just arrive, or I'll just say a lyric that I feel like I've said before, but it's brand new. And I always call those my God moments. I'm not super religious, and sometimes I tap in and out of my spirituality more than others because as life is hard, it's hard to believe that something is greater than us protecting and moving these chess pieces, because at times it can feel so random. And but yeah, I do feel like at times I'm really able to tap into something that's greater than myself. So I don't really take credit for any of the songwriting or for exactly what I do. I just think that I am kind of this, I'm the puppet for the
vessel.
For God's work,
the vessel. Yeah. It's, it was so interesting, like sitting down to start to do a deep dive around all this. And I realized that I was going to have to make this confession to you that because I'm 51, I did not ever see Hannah Montana, so I knew about it, of course, and my friends with kids, those kids were too young. So what I ended up getting to experience, though, was I had no idea how fucking funny you are.
Oh, thanks.
You are so funny.
Thanks.
And it's not just off the cuff funny, but it's, deeper. And then you have these moments where it feels like, your humor and your sort of adventurousness and your inquisitive nature come together. I was laughing hysterically when I heard that you went looking to see where the gophers go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think that was in a very interesting time in my life.
Okay. I mean.
Well, the reason I was excited to speak with you is because anytime I do an interview, it sometimes can feel like I'm already anxious about it because of I know that they're going to research me. And there's times of my career or of my journey that it's not my shame that I hold with it. It's the shame that surrounded that time in my life. And I always get a little anxious or kind of just annoyed simply that I know that if I'm going to be interviewed, that I'm most likely going to be reviewed from the beginning. And there's going to be these times that I can go, I'm really proud of that and I'm glad that you saw it. And there's times that I'm not. And there's certain years that I feel I wish I could just kind of skip over and get to the place that I am now. But the place that I am now is not near as interesting or as as meaningful if you don't actually go through some of the guts of my timeline that carries a little bit more of that guilt and some of the, honestly, trauma and some of that those triggers. So knowing that you went straight to kind of the beginning of my career and you're looking at it from a place of, I see how much joy you brought people, how much laughter you put into the homes of families all around the world. That's something that I'm really proud of. And then there's other moments in my career that I still am, dealing with not just the way that they made me feel, but the way that others reacted and how I took that reaction, for myself. So that's something I'm excited to talk about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think like me, you're also a social canvas, and people somehow they project so much onto those of us who find ourselves in that role in the world, right? I don't know 100% why people do it. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Why people are mean?
Well, I mean, it's more than just mean, I think, because I don't know. I feel like when you're mean, you kind of know you're being mean. And sometimes I think some of what people project, they don't even realize what they're saying or doing.
I had to do a lot of work realizing that it's theirs and it's none of my business, and something I meditated and kind of created a mantra was like, how people think of me or see me isn't really any of my business. It's hard to draw that line, but without that line, I would constantly be confused on who and what I actually, stand for and what I want to be in this lifetime, which, as far as I know it, I don't have concrete proof that I have another one. I hope that I do, which is another thing I thought about when I was going to speak with you, what it would be like to have another lifetime, to be another person, to not be Monica or Miley everywhere that you go. And I thought a lot about you, that I wonder if you have just like a hard time, or if you divide yourself from celebrity, because, when I was listening to you interviewing yourself, Monica on Monica, was that celebrities kind of choose this life. And I didn't really choose it because I was only 10. So I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know necessarily, because it was also my dad in the 90s. It was very different. There wasn't cell phones where everyone's a paparazzi. There was a sense of privacy still. Just by being on a 500-acre farm, we truly could be alone. But now, with drones and things and the internet, you're never really alone.
No.
And so I think that I've had to find the compassion for myself that it's hard for other people to see, because as a celebrity, especially as one that gets into it as young as I did, I didn't have the full wherewithal to understand what it would mean to make this choice and to pretty much be famous forever.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too, because I think we talk in society a lot about privacy, but anonymity is not something we ever really think about, and until you lose it, and then you can't really get it back.
You were speaking about not being able to sit outside at a restaurant, which I haven't been able to do since I was 12, and I am able. When someone goes, well, of course I have the physical ability but it's not the same experience.
You want to be able to exhale. I mean, I kind of had gone into what I call my dark decade, and then slowly started to emerge about 10 years ago. And gratefully, I think I've had the right level of, there's enough interest when I have things I want to talk about, if I'm doing an anti-bullying campaign, or I get to launch a podcast, but I can now sit outside at a restaurant and I won't have paparazzi come, thank God. So, but I know exactly what you're feeling.
And I thought about that a lot, of just, I made a choice that has altered my life forever. And I always like to kind of go back and go, where did it happen? Like, because everything that happens to us started somewhere that we probably have forgotten about. It seems, benign at that time. You go, well, I spoke to my mom yesterday, who's, she's my best friend. Her and I are really close. We were sitting outside and I'm like, can you believe that we moved to LA from Nashville, Tennessee and never went home? We never went back. I spend very little time there, but I decided at 10 I wanted to move to LA and be famous, and boom, I'm like, turning 33, and I'm still in almost that same day that happened that long ago. And so everything that we do changes everything that we do. And so that's why anything is so important to me. Sometimes I can get a little hung up on the little things, but the little things can always take a turn for the big thing. Something you think is small can lead to something so much greater than you ever expected.
Yeah. I had a crazy experience where it was like, the voice in your head, right? So I had gone to the beach and I was going one way, and then this voice in the head was like, go the other way, go the other way. So I did. And then I ran into someone that I had like had a negative interaction. I did not think I was at fault. And the little voice was like, make amends, make amends. So I fucking did.
Yeah.
And all week long, I just was thinking about that. It was the strangest thing. And 2 weeks later, I found myself in a situation where I realized that was a dress rehearsal.
What do you mean by it was a dress rehearsal?
Well, I think that if I had found myself in the situation I did, and I hadn't had like almost the energetic, emotional muscle memory of having, okay, listening to this voice, going the other direction, making amends when I, wasn't sure, just that whole process and going back to the person. I don't know that I would have been able to find it so quickly in a moment where I was now really, this meant something different. It was something that I would have really regretted if I hadn't been able to step into a better version of myself in that moment. I would have really regretted not being able to make those amends.
My family and I have had a really difficult, what did you call your decade?
Dark decade.
Dark decade. Yeah, we had one of those. Half of us weren't speaking to each other at one point, and we cleaned all that up. That was a really important part of my year. This year was all of my family putting those lines of communications back together, a lot because of, I had a lot of loyalty to my mom, the way that families do when parents get divorced, But, I definitely, in that situation, I watched what happens when you don't clean things up as they're happening. They really do stack. And then all of a sudden you go, oh my God, it's been 10 years and this is a mess that I barely even know how to start. This is like emotional hoarding.
Yeah.
But I just kind of bust through the pile that's stacked and just go, I'm here, you're here. Let's start by having a good time together. And then as we start bringing some like happiness and joy into each other's life, then we'll just be in a better place to have these conversations. Because I'd rather get it
really interesting.
Balanced first.
Did you have to go to like family counseling to do that, or was it?
We're so messy. We didn't even do any of that. We just all started going, to get each other in a room to even get to counseling would have been a war.
Right.
So it was easier to just go white flag. I mean, I even wrote a song about it that's actually not on this album. I'm working on another album, and that's a song that I'm working on called Secrets. And I wrote this song about my dad because I wanted him to tell me, even though they were secrets, even though I didn't really want to know. I wanted to be the one he felt safe enough to tell me the things that were damning and damaging to the family, but I wanted him to think that as a middle child, I'm old enough that I could take some of that, And I always wanted my family to feel like I was this safe place, that I always had the white flag when they came to talk to me. My psychiatrist, my therapist who I've gone to forever, named Dr. Amen, love him.
I have a whole Amen story too, but
Amen's amazing. But he got me because I'm kind of a competitive person when it comes to like sports or things like that. And he was like, you want brain envy. You want people to watch the way you think and envy the way that you think, and then they're going to start envy becomes imitation. So have people, the way that they start to envy the way that your thoughts are being processed, the more they might kind of start to mirror them, to want to be like them. Like if you see someone that has great style, suddenly you buy a pair of shoes that maybe you never would have bought, but you go, they look so good on her, I want them for myself. So I kind of try to just be a place where people go, wow, I like the way that she's functioning. I want to function like that, so I'm going to kind of mimic it until it becomes natural to them.
Yeah. How old were you? So I'm just thinking, because when my parents divorced, I was 14, and I was, naughty back then, and in ways that nobody even ever thought. Like I read all the divorce papers that. Of course, at 14 years old, you're not supposed to read the divorce papers. And I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell either my parents that I had. But were you already famous, or was this pre-fame?
No, I think, my parents, their stuff started before I was born, So I've watched my mom and my dad stay in things. They are chronically polite. And my mom will stay in something that makes her uncomfortable for way too long, not wanting to hurt somebody. And at the end, it's just so excruciating for her. And my dad does the same thing, but he processes it differently where, he doesn't want to say or do something maybe that would hurt you. So he does it in a way that you will not see, because what you don't know won't hurt you. So it lives, that's why I wrote a song called Secrets.
Familiar.
Yeah. My dad is probably one of the most well-spoken and intelligent. You sit and have a conversation with him. He's like sounds like an English major.
Right.
He spells things wrong, but it doesn't matter because what he's saying is so poetic. He's so smart. And so when somebody has that level of intelligence, but they're also very intuitive, because my dad's a very spiritual person, intelligence and intuition sometimes when they get mixed can be very deceiving.
Yeah. Well, it can be manipulative.
Manipulative,
it can be,
watching that word, but yes.
Yeah.
Because it does come from this really beautiful, poetic place, but he's also a politician, so he's getting my vote, when it comes to my mom and my dad in that way. So growing up with actually a political background, I think really affected me in more ways than I understood until I got to be in my 30s.
Oh, how interesting. Well, there's that joke that they say Washington is Hollywood for the ugly people.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I like that.
And it is very much like Hollywood in terms of, I think, the way things are very transactional. It's transactional there, and the power is sort of, I think that it is something that is both intoxicating, but also something that can be looked at or experienced one way from how people see something out in the world. And then when you're actually in DC and you're around the power, it's more about equals rather than red and blue. Right. It's more about like, how much power do you have? Do you have enough power to hang out with me or go play golf or whatever those things are? But it's
yeah, they definitely I think it makes sense that politicians and entertainers, they enhance each other. Like when the political campaign is celebrity endorsements, really important.
Yeah.
And it shows that how much that power and that charm and that charisma, how much it plays a part, and how much people feel like they're being spoken to. And I think there's also a level to celebrity where you get thrown out if you are unrelatable, especially for women. So for guys, I've never heard anyone say, Bruce Springsteen's too good or too pretty. He wears jeans and a t-shirt in his life, and he wears it on stage. He kind of is who he is. There's a through line. But when it comes to a female, I have a little bit more of I called it a drag before we got started. I have more of my persona, which works as this armor for me. Because sometimes I feel that if I feel, powerful enough or beautiful enough, I'll have more of a confidence to speak my truth or feel like I'm in character enough to actually be honest. Because sometimes the character helps my honesty in some way.
Wait. I want to unpack that a little. Are you saying then that there is a part of you that doesn't feel confident? If there are ways that in having the outfit or the armor or feeling beautiful, right?
I think it does something that I don't need to do then. It fills a space for me. It gives me a little bit of a break because if what I'm wearing or what I look like is entertaining enough, it actually gives me the space to be quiet. So sometimes at these events like, a Met Gala or the Grammys, I'm usually the quietest one in the room, which you wouldn't really assume from my persona, but it's mostly because I don't have much to say in those scenarios. Because they're too, like you use a great word, transactional for me to actually ever dig my nails or my teeth into something enough that I care to have that conversation. So I allow, I hope that I look so entertaining or, mesmerizing in a way that it actually stops too much of a conversation from happening. Maybe it's a way of, being kind of almost intimidating like an animal would do, like having spikes or being able to have venom or show your teeth. It's kind of me showing my teeth.
Right. In terms of personas and different things, I love this idea of you. I think it's so intelligent, but this idea of being so self-aware and so aware of the culture and how the world works that you can sort of create a persona that stands alone and does all the work that it needs to do. It does the work. So do you, when those changes happen for you, because you've had a number of different personas, right? I mean, do you see it that way?
But I've always kind of had one. Yeah.
Okay.
I always have one.
Do you see them, but you always have a persona. Do you see them as having been different personas or is it?
Yeah, I think they're just different. I think I'm always throwing darts in some way to see what feels good. And so I've tried on so many different identities because I have always been looking for myself. And I think if I had to rank what I respect most, number one would be, and the reason I say this is because this isn't me. It's consistency. I'm a very inconsistent person. And in my inconsistencies, I'm actually very consistent. If you're into human design, my calling is to be specifically unspecific and vice versa, meaning I am very specific, but unspecifically, if that makes sense.
No, you have to explain that to me. I'm sorry.
Like whoever I am or whatever I'm doing at that time, I'm very sure and very specific about.
Okay.
Like, for example, like if it's a genre, and maybe I might throw that away on the next album. But in the moment of that genre, I am specifically only that.
Okay.
And nothing can enter. No jacket, no socks, no music, no furniture. Nothing can enter that does not align with that specific whatever the scenario is. But because it's changing all the time, it's unspecific.
Okay.
So I'm constantly renovating myself and my surroundings because I can't even really sit in a room that feels unaligned with me. So that's why I don't play stadiums anymore, because I don't like to really experience stadiums. So I don't like to play them because I don't like to experience them.
Right.
I think they're disconnected and I think they're too loud and like
it's a lot of energy.
It's too much energy and too many people and I don't really like it.
Yeah.
So, I am very, whatever it is that that I believe in that moment, I wouldn't say it's like totally finite, and it's meaning it's not that I can't be flexible, because I also have had to work on managing the flexibility. I wanted to be flexible so I could bend and not break, but I also don't want to become, like I said, chronically polite. So I'm like working on that a little bit. But yeah, so I'm specifically really unspecific as a person.
Yeah. I think for me, it was almost in a way the opposite, which is that I felt like I was defined by either so many other people incorrectly or defined by my worst moments.
Right.
That's
what we have in common.
Yeah. All I wanted was to just be seen for my true self. Like, I mean, that really was.
Do you feel like you knew who that was?
Well, I think a little like love. You know how love when you're younger, you believed it was love. But now you look back, you're like, well, that was, 20-year-old love. Right. Or that was 30. Well, you'll see. You're just
But that's
30.
what I mean by kind of the specifically unspecific too, is where you look at something like that and you go, in that moment, I really believe that.
Yes.
That's not a persona.
Right. I think for me, what I was going to say is that I feel like I keep knowing myself, but then I keep discovering more. And so therefore it's like, well, I didn't really know myself in that moment because I didn't know all this other stuff that happened, right? So, or these other facets of me, or I'll see myself, my therapist taught me, my trauma psychiatrist, so taught me, how important it is to notice the small changes, because that's how the psyche starts to feel safe.
Right.
But it's so, when you start to see those facets, it's like the people in my life who will remind me, you did this differently this time. Like, I may not have seen it, but it was different.
So meaning they kind of give you the gold star that you would forget to like give you, like, don't forget you did this.
Right. Or just reflecting back to me, because I think so much of what changes and how we get to know ourselves more and understand ourselves is if we're the kind of person I think we both are.
It's interested to do that.
Exactly.
Right. And that's what I meant by cleaning up other people's stuff, is that I think I do sometimes gravitate towards people that don't necessarily naturally crave like digging deeper and kind of doing that work. And I've realized that just because I do their homework for them and they get an A+ doesn't mean that they're an A+ student. And I now have just let myself go, because I realize that they actually will become who they're meant to be if I don't assist so much. And actually the kindest thing I can do is let go and not become overpowering in their life. And so I'm learning how to resist my nature to want to be overly helpful, therefore sometimes hurtful.
Right. Okay, well, you're going to have to help me.
You got to mind your business. Minding my business saves me so much time, too. It's frustrating because you watch and you go, I just know that I could do that in a way that could cause you so much less grief later.
Oh, my God. My brother is going to listen to this episode. He's be like, see, that's what you do.
Back up.
Right.
Yeah, you got to back up.
It's like you always have an opinion about something. I'm like, that is true.
Yeah, and you still get to have it. You just got to, tell someone that's a vault. Find your vaults in your life.
You could be a psychologist.
I would really like to.
Yeah. Do you think like in the multiverse where,
there's another me?
Yeah, there's another you. Well, there are lots of other yous. Do you think
one of them is sitting in a chair doing this? I think because, when I I have been interrogated so much in my own way in my life. And at one point, there was a petition against me. I think it was called A Million Moms. It was like moms wanting me to not be able to be on TV because I'm too provocative. That's in my notes. And so when I felt... It was really intense and really...
Oh, Miley, I'm so sorry.
For the silliest thing, by the way. I like dressed as a teddy bear and moved my butt in a certain way. And it was very offensive because it was a different time in life as things have, I don't know if we want to say evolved or devolved. I don't know which direction we're going, but we're going.
It's different.
So I feel that I have a lot of compassion for people and a lot of understanding. And I think the only line that I draw that's pretty concrete and non-negotiable is judgment. It's the one thing that I won't accept and won't deal with. Actually, I'll deal with it, but in a way that rejects it and it is removed from my existence and is not in welcome.
Does your ability to do that to it also mean it doesn't
It's probably also a trauma response. You know, it's like I refuse to even entertain judgment because I've experienced it so much. But now I just think, honestly, I think it's lazy and I think it's weak because I think the truth is you're judging me because you don't have it in you to look at yourself and see what you see in me that's painful for you to witness and what it's triggering in you. And I think you're lazy. And that may be cold, but you know what? Dr. Amen, I said, I think I'm getting like hard and tough. He goes, well, life is hard and tough, so that's good.
Yeah.
At some point, I am really into, we're going to nurture each other and have more conversations about mental health. That should be as important as any sort of physical ability is this, the mental aspect of caring for one another. But I also think that life is hard and that doesn't mean to become calloused or become completely shelled. But it does mean that at times when life is tough, you might have to meet it with the same level of just intensity or energy. And it doesn't have to be negative. It just has to be, I don't really want to get plowed over by some experience in my life. I'd rather in some way die trying in that way.
I think now too, especially that we've started to, as a society, I think we've started to recognize and work with the nervous system a lot more.
I'm very into that.
Yeah, me too. So it's just the whole vagus nerve and all that. In fact, I was trying to remember, I saw a meme this morning that it was talking about, it was like hypervigilance versus interoception. And so the interoception is when you check in with your body. Right. So it was sort of like the hypervigilance was your mind and interoception was the process of doing it in the body. And like, yes, the paparazzi sucks, but you fucking feel hunted. Right. There's a reason that it's like they say take a shot with a camera. It really...
I think about the word capture.
Yeah.
Like, that alone, like the word capture would alert anyone's nervous system to go into overdrive. Right. To capture this moment. I really like this quote from Scarlett Johansson. I'm probably going to get roasted for saying I like it because I think she got roasted for saying it, but I liked it. She was just saying, I don't want to savor every moment in a photo with the fan. And I do take, when I feel up for it, I do take photos. And I think as much as it takes guts to ask me for a photo, and I respect that, it takes guts for me to say, not right now, with my family, or I'm not presenting myself in a certain way that I want blasted across social media. And I want to believe that you're not taking it to post it, but likely it's to prove that we had this moment, and you probably will. And I'm going to get annihilated in the comments, and they're going to make me feel terrible about myself. And I don't really want to put myself in that position. So no, thank you. But, I liked when she said, you take a photo for a memory. You go, this moment is important. I want to savor it. So I'm going to capture it so I can remember it forever. And I don't really want to remember this exact interaction because for you, this is a great experience. But for me, it's discomfort. I don't really want to experience it. So I think that we should be gentle, with our celebrities. I also think, as a celebrity, I'm very sure that I'm very financially comfortable and I live a very, blessed life that I am taking credit for, that I've created. But I also know that it's circumstantial in some way. I was born to, already in the industry, which is something else I had for you of like, you becoming famous. I didn't become famous. I've only ever known fame since I was born.
Oh, interesting.
So, like when my dad was at his peak, I was just an infant. And actually I was in the womb going to my dad's concerts. So before I even existed, I've known fame. And so I think that would be a big difference between you and I, or even like our physical response to fame, is because I'm bred to kind of be this person.
I know you talked about really with your album too, about wanting it to be healing and a vibration, a certain vibration.
I love what you mentioned about frequencies too, just because that was really important for me in my music, that every word, every syllable, everything had a powerful and beautiful frequency, even if that meant it was dark or ugly, because, our darkness, our shadows, our anger, all these negatives get kind of like damned in this way, that they're not equally as beautiful. But I feel that, these traumas in my life have only been the pressure that actually condensed it down so much that the stone could, the diamond could appear. So I've needed all that heat. Anything that I love usually requires heat, time, pressure, force, except glass. I'm really interested in glass. I love like Murano, or I love glass because it's soft and it's very fragile, but its process comes from something really intense and fiery. The way that something so delicate is created is so intense and so brutal.
You've just described yourself, right?
Well, I hope so. I would love to be. My dream actually is for when I'm like much older, I'd like to have my own glass shop in Italy.
Have you taken glass blowing?
I'm starting. My very sweet partner got me, my boyfriend, he got me glass blowing lessons for my birthday. So I'm supposed to start that as this next thing, the album, as it starts to kind of grow up. It's going to be an adult soon. So I've raised it. It's been my baby. And now it's in this like child state. And then it's going to go off and do what it's going to do without me. And then I'm going to start taking my glass courses.
Right. Well, my birthday is July 23rd. So I
can make you a vase.
Exactly. Thanks so much to Audible, our presenting sponsor. Craving your next adventure? It's waiting for you on Audible. Dive into heart-racing thrills, vast adventures, and enchanted worlds, all with just a tap. Each story is carefully crafted to keep you on the edge of your seat until the very last word. Only on Audible will you find exclusive originals that transport you to captivating dimensions. Be in the know with early access to highly anticipated releases and discover chart-topping bestsellers that everyone's talking about, such as Frida McFadden's The Boyfriend to Ashley Elston's The First Lie Wins. Discover what lies beyond the edge of your seat on Audible. Start your adventure today. Sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com/reclaiming. That's audible.com/reclaiming. I'm thinking about with the personas that you intentionally create as a public person.
Unintentionally, that then became intentional.
Right. It's like my brain's going two different places. So one place is kind of this, do you ever feel trapped by them? Or, and then the other is kind of when you change them, does it change, the signal for change come from outside or does it come from inside?
So your first one was, what was your first one? You said?
If you've ever felt trapped.
Right, I felt trapped by them. Sometimes I do, because I think I was nurtured. The show's concept, literally the synopsis of the show, was that Miley is a regular girl that, she can't get a date and she has zits and, she's just normal. And that's not interesting. And she's not special because she's regular. And then Hannah is like, she puts on this drag, Hannah is like the tween drag queen. She puts on a wig and puts on her bedazzled jeans and she sings hit songs. And suddenly she has thousands of people chasing her and wanting to take photos of her. And every boy wants to date her. And so I don't know if that was completely healthy for this psyche as a young, impressionable girl to be, every day. And absolutely did my writers, they're teen comedy writers. They're not Dr. Amen. Dr. Amen might be sitting in the writer's room going, I don't know if this is positive. Like, you shouldn't reinforce this to her every single day. Like, maybe Miley should get a date with a hotter guy than Hannah gets a date with. You know, something that shows Miley she's more or as valuable as Hannah. So I think having that ingrained into my mind all day kind of made me create a character of myself, of, you know, the Miley that puts on the Hannah persona is more valuable than the regular me. And so that's why maybe part of me doesn't like to take photos out with people when I'm not in that drag, because I don't really want to be judged for my t-shirt and jeans, you know. And then your second one was,
is it intuitive to change something, or is it strategic? Like, it's time to have a different
personal. So it's something happens in my personal life that changes me, and I need to express it in my public persona, but I still want it to stay intimate and private to me.
Yeah.
So it's like saying something without saying something. It's almost like a signal, you know? And I think that the way that I look, or the way that I like project, is usually a sign of how I am mentally or emotionally. It usually is very obvious in the way that
interesting.
I present myself.
Yeah. I started to feel like a lot of emotion for you around what you were just saying about the Miley and Hannah and what you were taking in as a kid, and that you've processed all of that now. But I just am feeling for you in terms of what that must have been like in the space between having it happen and being able to be where you are now, where you're aware of it.
Well, something I really liked that I had heard you speak about was that actually when everything is happening isn't when you actually feel your worst. It's after. Because when you're in it, you can't really feel anything at all, because you're surviving and like your body is taking over and protecting you. So I didn't even notice when I was doing it that it was happening to me. It wasn't until I quit being Hannah Montana that I realized who and what she was, and I could look at both of the sides of the positive that she brought to me and the negatives that she brought to me. And so, yeah, being on the show, I wasn't aware enough as a 14-year-old to go like, this is kind of not okay. This concept is probably not great for me personally. It's entertaining and it's a good show idea, but probably not great to nail into my impressionable mind that I'm unvaluable when and my name is Miley on the show.
Right.
So it's being actually taught to me.
Right. So double.
Right. It's not like a character because originally Miley on the show, her name was Chloe. And in hindsight, I'm really glad that I changed it, because people feel like they got to know me by it being Miley, but it might have been better mentally to go home and be like, but Miley can be anything. Miley's not on the page.
Yeah.
Chloe's on the page. And maybe boys don't like her, or maybe she's less valuable, but Miley has potential to be absolutely anything, because that's a blank page for me to write. But instead, my story was being written for me every week. And then scripts became newspapers and magazines became social media. And so in a way, my life has always kind of been written for me, which is why I had to become firm.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I don't read something that's said about me and identify that, or identify with that. You were talking about cartoons when the newspapers would draw cartoons of you. And I had a similar situation with me. In the beginning, it was, you know, I used to get, I'm old enough and in this industry long enough, I used to get cartoons done of me too, but now they're memes.
Yeah.
And so I've had enough memes of me that, you know, there was a couple that were about my body that was in 2013, and people were putting my head on, you know, different, very unattractive things. And I still see that when I put on a bathing suit to this day. I wear you would never think, very modest bathing suits. And we actually just went on a trip. It was a whole girls trip, and everyone else had on a string bikini except me. I was in like shorts. You know, I don't even know if people wear tankinis anymore. I was wearing like a tank top, like an old lady.
You're bringing them back.
I was trying to bring back. And my sister goes, you know, you're you, so this is cool. Like, I guess this is in now. You're making this cool. But like, you know, this is what like a grandma wears to the beach. Like, this is not. Yeah. And it just hit me like, oh, I'm still so insecure about those memes about my body.
But those, I mean, I understand that, and I feel that, you know. People, when they're behind a screen, they tend to disconnect from the fact that what they're saying or seeing is actually about another human being. And I really wonder
That makes complete sense.
Yeah, it just is like I get that. I have a list of whenever I get my photo taken, I have like a pre-done list of like, okay, here are all the things that I need to make sure for Photoshop.
Right.
You know, clean this,
the chin, the eyes, the waist, the thing,
exactly.
because someone said at some point your waist, your eyes, your totally.
Or for me, it's sort of a, it might be like, making, if I have blue on, making sure it's clean, like making sure there's not a speck of dust,
keeping your skirt longer, or any of those things.
All of those things. It just is, I think that it's hard for people to understand that it impacts a public person in the same way if you were having a conversation face to face. If you were saying this to someone right? Which people wouldn't.
Right. Ever.
Like, no, ever. I mean, we're our meanest to ourselves. Right. But then it's just the kinds of things that people will say online are
They wouldn't really have the courage to say in person, because I think it's a courage thing as well. You get this confidence and this courage because you are protected by the screen. And for me in the day-to-day, it's like, I don't want to be that on, like the courage that it takes, that heart pounding, that adrenaline of like, I'm going to have to fight for myself right now. And so I'm glad that people stay behind their computers and they don't say it to my face. I'd rather that, but it's still equally as hurtful.
Yeah. I did this anti-bullying campaign a few years ago. And so I had to think about, in the course of it, it was like about online, offline behavior and being an upstander and this whole thing. And so I had to think about, the in-person experiences I've had of somebody being rude to me. And they were a lot less than I think people would have imagined. We were talking about humor in the beginning. And so aside from gallows humor that kind of helped me and my family get through 98, I use humor sometimes or being self-deprecating to kind of make people feel comfortable. Or I don't have to do it as much anymore, but for a long time, I would use it to make the joke.
So they couldn't.
So that it's like, oh, you're laughing with me, not at me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of a thing.
I totally get that. Something that really kind of touched me as you were speaking about, someone had said, could you imagine bringing Monica Lewinsky home to meet your family?
Joyce Brothers.
And I have had a lot of experiences like that, because I actually wrote a song on my last album called Wild Card about that. And it says like, do you want to play house? I could be your wife. Like, could you imagine taking me home to your mom in a dress this tight? And it was like, because that's how my public persona has been revealing throughout my career. Now I'm, in my 30s and I dress differently, and I hope that I have more, present myself in a more mature and sophisticated way. But at one time I had gold teeth and was like wearing a thong, and
I wore a thong too, honey.
Had a thong, had my gold, and I was like, could you imagine how many twerking jokes have probably already been made, or you're really going to bring the girl that sticks her tongue out home to meet your mom. And I hated meeting people's family, because I would think that the mom had probably already decided that I wasn't good enough for her son.
I get that.
And so I was always, again, like you said, kind of self-deprecating at these dinners, or make it obvious so it doesn't become awkward or become that unspoken elephant. I would just be me in the room. But I would always either decide, am I going to show up as me, or am I going to try to take all my jewelry off and wear a sweatshirt that's really big so you can't see my body at all, or wear baggy clothes so you can't see me. And that was hard until, this kind of past relationship. And I really just, I think being older, I was able to start it in a different place with already having those boundaries and feeling more comfortable with myself. So it was less awkward. Because again, like you said, it's usually us. Like, I'm bringing half of it into the room. But it was definitely a thing, meeting people's parents. I felt really embarrassed for a long time.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm like, I would have put little Miley on my lap and just stroke her hair. It's
hard.
At 51, I am still working on trying to integrate the idea of just this, I think the shame I experienced of certain behaviors that a lot of people would have engaged in, and certain behaviors that maybe some wouldn't have, but that the process of them becoming public, or my, heinous high school album with the bangs up to here, or whatever stupid thing I might have said on the Linda Tripp tapes, all those things. Like, I still feel like I have to work to integrate them because I totally related with your SNL, like Hannah Montana's dead.
Right.
I'm like, I get this idea.
I relate to what you said too, because it's like you said about your tapes and not knowing you're being filmed. That happened to me with a bong video when I was 16.
Oh, wow.
And it cost me a very large multi-million-dollar Walmart deal. Oh. And I actually, this is to use the humor, this will make it fun. I had to email the Walmart CEO an apology for being 16 and smoking weed, which most 16-year-olds do. But my email address at the time was Miley Loves Weed. And I had to tell them, which it actually wasn't weed. It really was salvia. But I needed to write to him, I'm sorry for smoking weed. And my mom's like, so here's his email. And she goes, what the hell? What's your email? Miley Loves Weed. You have to change that. And he was old, so I changed my email to Miley Loves Old People. And sent him
Still didn't help?
It didn't help very much. No, I still got fired from Walmart. But these things that, to really have adults firing a teenager for smoking pot, which that when they were 16 or 17, they smoked some weed. Now, the difference is I didn't know I was being filmed. And not only did I know, I might have known someone was filming and not cared because I was high on salvia, but I didn't know that my camera would then get stolen at a teen party because that's how it got leaked. Was I got my backpack stolen at a party. So it's like, that embarrassment of knowing at that time, like, okay, I didn't get any calls from any big companies for movies. And I, as a joke, got my boyfriend a penis cake for his birthday, and I got fired. I was the lead actress in Hotel Transylvania, and they fired me and replaced me because I had made an inappropriate adult joke, but I was 18. So yes, I was fine to work in a kid's movie, but I'm not a kid.
Yeah. Do you think that could happen today?
I don't know if that could happen today. I mean, I don't know if we put our Disney kids on the pedestal the way that we used to, our teen stars. I mean, I feel like I don't know much history about what anyone says or does, but I think that still movies can have consequences for their lead actor or actress doing things that don't align with the audience that the movie is made for. Because what felt ridiculous to me about getting fired from a penis cake was that they sell penis cakes like for all bachelorettes. Like in Nashville, Tennessee, you can get penis cakes. Like that's, it's not that big of a deal. So I thought, this is like a very simple, not vulgar joke. This is silly. And you can do this for all bachelorette parties. They make necklaces and cups and straws and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. So it felt ridiculous. But to be fired, for regular things that like girls my age, they go to bachelorette parties and they do this. They go to like Magic Mike shows. But if I was at that time, I wasn't someone that was appropriate for kids, even though that was in my personal life. And that photo, again, only revealed itself because the camera had been stolen.
Right.
Nothing I posted. It's not like I was out there.
You were responsible in your private behavior.
In my private behavior. I was at a private event at a private party and I got robbed.
Yeah. What the fuck?
Yeah, it's not cool.
No. I'm wondering, I think you were probably the biggest Disney child star, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You said it.
Yeah, I said it. So did you feel a responsibility in a way that you had this mantle to carry in a way? And did you feel that as a responsibility?
I felt it in the responses and the repercussions of my actions, but during my actions, I didn't feel it so much. Like, there wasn't so much of a time where I'm like, going through the steps to make the penis cake and going, probably shouldn't be doing this. Disney's going to be upset. I might have been like, I'm not going to invite my mom to this party. But like, I didn't think about it becoming a public moment because in my private time, I felt really safe to be the way that a regular 18-year-old would be. But I felt it in the repercussions. And something else I had heard you say was when you were talking about just like existing after that and just going, man, I have a long life to be in this character that I'm not sure I want to be in anymore. Yeah. And when that happened to me, it sounds silly now, to go, I'm older and like I got fired for a penis cake, ha ha ha. But at the time, I remember I jumped in the pool and I said, I'm not going to come up until you guys get me my job back. And I mean, it was really upsetting me.
Right.
And I was with my lawyer and my manager at the time, and they were both freaking out because they didn't realize how much it had hurt me until that moment when they realize I had said what I said. And that's when Dr. Amen came into my life. Not exactly that experience, but that year when I became, I think I was 18 the year that I met Dr. Amen. And it was moments like those where he could help me work through those types of things. So I didn't want to go underwater and not come back up.
Right.
Those moments are real for me. And now they're funny, but they definitely weren't funny then.
No, of course not. Of course not. I think, too, there's anybody who spends 5 minutes with you can feel that there is such a soft sweetness to you inside.
Glad you see that.
Yeah. I think the thing is that it's when you're saying those people were surprised, it's like because they're not looking deeper.
Right.
They're not seeing,
and
they're
I don't
not
think
seeing
they even
all
have
the
that
layers
mode
of you.
I had to realize that I can't hate them or resent them for not seeing that because I don't think they have that mode.
Right.
I have that mode. When I just now as an adult, I would just never fire a child for smoking the bong, at 16-year-old, by the way.
Right. I heard read something. And so it was interesting to me because you made my job really easy. I think where you were talking about that you reclaimed your love of performing and music by setting up these private performances at the Chateau.
Right.
And Chateau Marmont. And that it was connected to a big thing that had happened. And
it was rewriting all those traumas that had stored themselves in my cells and made me physically ill. So now instead of the last show that I played, I guess it was maybe over 3 years ago, large crowd was 250,000 people. And since then, I have never done that again because it was so disturbing to my body and to the holistic version of me. And now I play 250 max. And as I...
250,000 max?
No, 250 people only.
Okay.
250,000 I took. Because
I was like,
that's gone.
Okay.
I took all the zeros out and threw them away.
Okay.
I only do 250.
Yeah.
Max. That's like a full room.
Right.
A show that I have coming up, I think we might have 100 people, and then another one I'm doing only holds a room of 80. So
I love it.
I do very minimal shows, and they actually become more meaningful for the crowd too.
Yeah.
And because of the lovely internet, they go just as far. They're just the same.
I also, P.S., love Chateau Marmont. So,
me too. And who doesn't want to be in a beautiful place singing beautiful music with, people that you can see and connect to. And then also just the physical danger of playing 250,000 people. The show that I was doing, it was out of the country, and the amount of security that I had, all with guns standing at the bottom of the stage and up on the ceilings. And I guess they needed them. You're in a crowd of 250,000. They can't personally check everybody. You don't know who's in the crowd and who has strong feelings towards me. I'm a pretty divisive figure in some ways because of my opinions and just I think my stance is a kind of a feminist and just my views, my political views in general. So I would say I'm kind of a divisive, controversial person. And so I need that amount of security, but I'm like, I don't really want to be anywhere that I need this much protection.
Yeah. Good for
and
you.
I kind of saw myself as a bullseye and I just didn't want to be there anymore.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes absolute sense.
Total, reasonable, logical sense.
Yes.
100%.
100%.
So that's where the shame and guilt can kind of take a hike because you're just like, that makes perfect sense. If you listen to what I'm saying, it's not about me not appreciating the fans, me abandoning this is not about you. That's your lens. This is about my safety and I'm building myself.
And you're allowed to evolve.
Yeah.
I think that's, the word reinvention is used a lot, I think, with a lot of women performers, icons, pop icon, music icons and I have a real allergic reaction to the word reinvention. So because I think it implies that what was there before wasn't good enough.
Right.
And so
like an upgrade.
Yeah. And that it's sort of instead of this idea of evolving and an evolution that I think we're all allowed in, especially when you're a young person. Right. I mean, that's all that happens is you make mistakes. You try and learn who you are. You make mistakes. You discover certain things about yourself, that some things that stay with you for life and some that go away. It's
reclaiming is a great word for everything that we've discussed.
Yeah.
And I think it's, again, just the frequency of something attracts you or repels you. And I think you titling your podcast Reclaiming immediately is a gracious invitation to let people feel safe to do it. If it was called interrogation or, you're like, okay, but because when we call things certain things, they're potent. That's why something beautiful was so important to me.
Yeah. I printed out this quote that you have about something beautiful that the producers and I were just talking about for hours. I mean, not hours, but for a long time. And so I didn't know if you wanted to read it.
Sure.
Because you're
probably what it is.
Read it better than I will.
It might be like an op-ed that I had. Let's see. It was important for me that every song has these healing sound properties. The songs, whether they're about destruction or heartbreak or death, they're presented in a way that's beautiful because the nastiest times of our life do have a point of beauty. They are the shadow, they are the charcoal, they are the shading. You can't have a painting without highlights and contrast. I still believe this.
Yeah, so beautiful.
Here for you.
Yeah, yeah. And I loved that, you sort of talked about this visual album. So we'll also be just do they make regular albums still?
Yeah, I make a vinyl. I have a vinyl
for everybody to know what it is.
Yeah, I'm doing old school things because I like old school things. I'm even doing a vinyl signing, which people are like, they don't really want a CD or an autograph, but I want to give them both. So
okay.
But I feel that out of everyone I've seen that you've spoken to, I do feel like in a way you and I are kind of more paralleled than anyone I've seen you sit with specifically only because of the age. Because when you were talking about being 18 and who you were and then being 24 and then in that like very pivotal, important time of a young woman's life of like becoming 25 and that being so much stress and what that's doing to, your physical, mental, emotional, it's destroying all these parts of you. And, I had written down that my 2013 is your 1998 because that was the time where I just hit so hard and I was so embarrassed. And you were mentioning your family too. I mean, there was even a time where my brother and sister didn't want to go to school because of how humiliated they were to be related to me. And I remember even, my brother at one point, he was saying, I don't judge you, but you could understand how hard it is for me to go to school and you be my sister.
Yeah.
And that really, I was a hard sibling to have as a little girl, so I was like, all right, we're even. But it was really hard for me in 2013, and I lost everything during that time in my personal life because of the choices I was making professionally. If I kept dressing or acting a certain way, my relationships fell apart. No one wanted to date me because they didn't want to be with a woman. That sexual expression part was not for them. It was like shared with the world. So like guys, when I would try to date, when I was dating or who I was engaged at the time, that didn't work out because I was sharing a part of myself that men wanted to be saved for them only. And the fact that I would, pose nude or dance in very little clothes or show my body was making them feel like I was taking something away that was meant to be for them. So I would have really hard times dating. And it was really hard. It was really hard for me to go home and see my dad and like look him in the eyes and not feel super embarrassed. Same thing. My grandmother was like my grandmother is my best friend. She's dead, but she's still my best friend. And I was like, oh God, this is going to kill her, because my grandma is like, again, you talked about your mom. My grandma grew up in an age of like, it was super, I mean, she was in an abusive relationship for half of her life and wouldn't have left, just because that wouldn't be the right thing to do as a woman.
Yeah.
So, so having that and going home and seeing my grandparents was just mortifying, or Thanksgiving
I
with my
felt that way
uncle.
when the Star Report came out, where it was just like it had been bad enough with men in general, but in particular, my dad and my brother and my stepdad of, just that all these things were out there. And my dad's a doctor and he still went to work every day.
Right.
And my brother was in college.
It's just hard.
Yeah. I don't know how you feel. I still feel guilt. Mm-hmm. I still sometimes carry guilt around about that.
I did EMDR about guilt and shame.
Ooh.
And it kind of deleted some of that stuff.
Oh, that's interesting. During COVID, I bought a bar so I can do it with my therapist over Zoom.
Right.
So, which is great.
It changed me. I mean, I did 2 sessions and I feel like it kind of deleted a folder of my mind, the guilt and shame folder. So I haven't really dealt with that for probably about 4 years. But up until I did that EMDR, I had a lot of guilt about how hard it would have been to be my sibling or my parent and how embarrassing and, all those things. So I definitely feel, our experiences were different, but they were parallel in a lot of ways.
Right. Well, and I think what's interesting too is that there's an undercurrent of sex, right? So you're talking about men thinking that they own you. I think that's going too far.
Right.
But that your sexuality is supposed to be just for them.
Right.
And I think in my case, it was a sort of sexuality that was never supposed to be public.
Right. The big difference between what I'm expressing. But I think for me, I was coming from Disney. So in my way too, it was never strategic of I'm going to shed the skin, but it was only so dramatic and so shocking for people. What I did wasn't shocking. It was who I was that was shocking.
Right.
Like if you imagine, a couple years ago, like WAP.
Wait, I don't
know
know
what it's about. Are we telling Monica Lewinsky what WAP is about? Did I tell her?
Guys, I'm a loser.
Did I tell her? It stands for wet ass pussy.
Okay.
And it got performed at the Grammys. I dressed as a teddy bear and got shamed. But Cardi B isn't for kids. She's not a child star. So when you think about someone like that, like for me, it was so hard to go, but like, why is Rihanna not in trouble? Right. Or why is why are these other girls not in trouble the way that I am? And that's because I'm a kid. I'm thinking I'm in trouble. It's like the principal.
Right, exactly.
And so I'm going, why am I in trouble? But it was because I was a kid star. So it's like the babysitter went rogue.
Yeah.
I was like a babysitter for America's children. You put them in front of the screen, if they're watching my show, they're going to be good. I'm not going to say anything inappropriate. You feel safe with them spending time with me. And that's when people felt like I wasn't a safe place for their kids anymore.
God.
So it was a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that in the way that I feel it talking to you. Well,
that's when the petition happened to get me banned, which actually meant to sabotage my career, because if I was banned from television, that's my entire livelihood. So now it's like what you were saying about okay, well, what's my future if I am wearing this badge of shame for the rest of my life? Not only shame, but people have just given me you're out. So to bring it in with this album, that's something that was really, not only am I, I'm clearing. This album is really about healing. I've talked about it a lot. This album has healed me in many ways, but it really is about healing. And sometimes that can be in the simplest or deepest of ways. There's a song I have on the album with Naomi Campbell. That's just healing because it's awesome. Okay, that's just awesome. That's just iconic. That's what it is. And it's healing to me too, because to work with her, because I think she's had a persona and kind of an idea surrounding her that she's mean, that all women in this industry, we just get kind of labeled.
All women, period.
Right. Get
all
labeled.
Women, period.
Yes.
Yeah.
So working with her and having her, fashion such an important part of this album, and having her validate what I'm doing in the fashion space, or having Brittany Howard, which there's not a more legitimate artist, I don't think, out there in modern music than Brittany Howard. Is just a multi-instrumentalist, and as a singer and a writer, she is the best of the best, top tier. And so having her go, you're a real artist, even though you do pop music and you wear different outfits than the girls in her genre, it's you're still a real artist. And so a lot of those those kind of queens passing their this throne to me healed me a lot and cleaned it up. But then certain songs like End of the World or Something Beautiful or Give Me Love, those are actually embedded with sound healing for real. Give Me Love has lots of crystals, a crystal bache. There's sound healing properties within the compositions.
That is amazing. I have a trauma psychiatrist and a somatic therapist and a friendipist, but the main healing of my soul has been a nonverbal sound work.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's a really special part of you, because not everybody can receive sound like that, because I think a lot of people could judge, the bowl comes out and someone goes, they're my mom would already be I'm not doing this.
Right. I it was really interesting. The first session I had, I came home and I was like, I don't know how to explain this, but my soul knows I need to do it.
Right.
And that was in 2007, and I still am doing the same work.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for it. So the question I ask everybody at the end is, are you in the process of reclaiming anything right now that is, it could be an idea, a thing, a person, it could be anything.
You know me, that's like a tangent. So let me try to whittle it.
Girl, I am here for your tangents. I'm the queen of, or give me a voice memo.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I come in with like the 4-minute, 40-second.
That's short for me. Yeah.
Okay. So am I reclaiming anything at this moment? It's kind of on its way. And I am, as much as I am kind of in nature, there's a part of me that's a very kind of free-spirited person. But now as speaking with me, you see that I'm also a little too aware, and I've probably done a little too much work to be quite as free-spirited as I once was, because I think some amount of awareness and anxiety is healthy because it keeps us safe. You know, this album, for me, this is not in any way a retirement or a goodbye, but it is the last lap. I call it the last lap around the sun in this particular way. This album is my newborn, and it's keeping me up all night, and it's exhausting. And I am really grateful for this record. It's worth it for me to put this much into this creation, because, by the way, I've been working on this album for 2 years. I've already put so much that this last little stretch, the album is
beautiful,
has its own legs now. I can set it free to become someone else's baby.
Yeah.
You know, but in this particular way, the amount of commitment that I've put into this particular creative child, I don't know when I'll be ready to put this much pressure on myself about something, and one thing in particular again.
Yeah.
I think this is my 10th album. My fans will correct me, but I've made a lot of albums, and I've done albums as myself. I've done albums as a band. I've done albums as Hannah.
Right.
I've just made so much music, and that I don't see leaving. That's something that every day I can't help myself but to create it. But I don't know if I'll ever do it in this particular way of the amount of pressure that I've given myself for this particular album. I wanted to do something thoroughly and leave no stone unturned. And so that's why not only did I give myself, making an album's already a lot.
Yeah.
Then I made it into a film, and now I make it into this like kind of fashion statement and this, you know, attempt to medicate a sick culture through like healing properties in pop music. I don't know when I'll put myself in that position again. So I'm kind of reclaiming what music, that dividing what is the music versus this part.
Yeah.
The talking about it, the promoting it, the fueling it. You know, I just kind of want to make it and release it next time.
Yeah. Miley, thank you so much.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming and being here and being open and all the things. This was...
I really enjoyed it.
Okay. This is a heart delight.
Thank you.
So thank
you
you
very much.